The way we set up a project with one of our clients, let's say we've never actually worked with a client before.
Sure.
We get a phone call, we get something off the website,
Right.
off of LinkedIn. Somebody calls us, and let's just say they already have a product.
Sure.
So it could go in two different directions. Normally, when people come to us, they have a product that's just ready to be, to take off.
Sure.
That it's already set up, and all we're doing is validation.
Right.
And then the other side of it is
An idea or something that's just not quite working. It's just not quite there.
so the way Whitney and I break it up when we get a project, I handle the action plan, and Whitney comes in later and creates the work order.
Mm-hmm.
We both talk to the client ahead of time
Right.
to establish the engineer with David, the engineering specifications, and really get a holistic view of how are they going to judge us, what are they
Sure.
looking for, and what are their biggest concerns. And within that conversation, we have that
Right.
chat about budget,
Right.
about money. But
Right.
before we get, because that's later on down the road once the work plan is done. Once the action plan
Right.
is done,
Oh.
we do the work order. We go into the initial conversation. It's almost like an interview.
Yeah, kind of. But
Yeah.
us interviewing them and them interviewing us. And we didn't used to do that, but we had a client that we got just a few months ago, and they took a lot of time to interview us. And he always said, we just want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit.
Good cultural
and we
fit.
loved that because then we both were, it's really hard when you get going in a project with a client and it's just, you guys can't find common ground.
Remember the phone call that we
Right.
had where we said,
It's just not going to work.
it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
There's
No,
a
that's
dynamic here that's just not working between the teams.
That's true.
And we're wasting everybody's time and money, and that happened on two
Sure.
occasions.
And we did start recognizing that, but I feel like our kind of interview process got a lot more
Totally.
formal.
Right.
And we wanted to make sure that they knew what we were doing too. It wasn't just some weird phone call with a bunch of questions.
that set up for us.
Mhm.
And that setup is that first, I don't want to say phone call, but the first few phone calls.
Yeah, oh sure, yeah.
And then from
Say
there,
2 or 3.
once we get a general idea of how we're going to work with them
Mm-hmm.
and a laser focus on those 3 questions,
Sure.
how they can judge, what do they want and their biggest concerns, we develop 2 separate things.
Yep.
So the first thing that we do is an action plan. So if somebody says, hey, we need you to develop, we have this idea for a liquid admixture, we'll develop a list of experiments that we're going to do, why we're going to use those
Sure.
experiments, and then we do a very general experimental plan, i.e. the reference mix and how many
Yeah.
mix designs that we're going to need to create this admixture and really stay with
Sure.
that. We like to do singular phases
Right,
of development. We don't like to throw everything out there for 2 reasons. One, it scares people off, and
sure.
it changes.
It does,
It
it
changes.
does.
We used to do these 4 or 5 page action plans.
Right, yeah, 3 different levels
Ah.
and a few different steps, and it just, it got
It just
to be
got
too much.
very
So
confusing.
doing one at a time and saying this is, phase 1, part 1, and then we, revisit and talk from there and see, again, if there were any changes in budget or if there were any changes in what they're looking for, and maybe they decide to go after a different market,
Sure.
then phase 2 would completely change based on where they were originally.
So we normally hit it somewhere between 5 and 10 mixes,
Sure.
depending on how difficult. We've gone as much as 40 or 50 mixes.
It's different.
That was different. So
That's
I mean,
very-
that is just a very
It's like
general,
from- Sure.
admixture. Then you have the, introduction,
Mm-hmm.
the properties that we're looking to go
Sure.
after, and normally those are the properties our client wants to
Right.
sell to the industry.
Right,
So then we're gonna, have a list of the tests that we're gonna use and why we're using these tests.
right.
And then the experimental plan as the reference mix and all the mixes.
Mhm.
Once I get that done, and I send it to our staff engineer and our principal engineer, and they approve it, that's when I send it over to Whitney,
Right.
and Whitney takes over.
And I do the proposal, and then that just is basically just lists the tests, the cost associated with the tests, and then again tells what dates things are going to be done on, what test days are, and all that. So just kind of lets them know what they're going to be paying for. So
Right, and one thing that we found that our clients really do appreciate over the years is that we don't just hit the ground running without letting them know exactly
Right.
what we're going to do. They're have been times throughout our tenure that we've had to do change orders,
Sure.
but normally that's from a request from our client.
Oh, absolutely.
So we like to hit the ground running, making sure our client is aware,
Sure.
and the action plan gives it a qualifies
Sure.
what the project is going after, and
Sure.
then the work order quantifies it,
Absolutely.
especially
As
on
far as the
financial
cost
side.
associated.
So once we send those two to them, I think that's where the real discussions. Everybody is very eager to spend money until they see the budget, and they're like, "Holy crap!" The conflict comes in the discussion about where their money is being spent, and here's the biggest problem. To validate something, especially if they eventually want to get something in a specification, we
Sure.
need to do certain tests. Now, we can do the absolute minimum, but unfortunately, the absolute minimum will not allow us to make the best decisions.
Sure.
We might end up spending more money later on
Sure.
because we can't make the decision. So now, where the resolution comes in is, okay, now that we're going down the road to get work done, a lot of people think that when they start work with us, they're going to get one singular formula.
Sure.
And that's not normally the case.
No.
Normally,
There's the top 2 or 3, maybe more.
and they get all the formulas, but
Sure.
there are going to be 3 or 4 formulas out of 13
Right.
or around that
Right.
number that are not going to work. And what's
Sure.
great about that information is if they ever run into issues in their plant when they're manufacturing on a larger scale, that information about failed mixes
Sure.
will help them understand what the heck is going on.
Sure. It was a little peek into IC behind the scenes.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We had a
Yes.
great time talking to you about how we make the magic happen here at Intelligent Concrete. If you ever have any questions about how we do business, how we came up with our phases, or even looking at how we get products out to the field, don't hesitate to shoot us a comment in the comment sections, a direct message. Like, subscribe, Go Concrete.
Beat asphalt.